All right, everybody. Dr. Keith here. Happy Wednesday. How's everyone doing? Hopefully you're all hanging in there, doing well. We've had a smoke-free few days here in Oregon. It's been nice. Been nice, and we may actually get some rain tonight. So things are turning around for the better for us with weather. Okay, so I actually don't think today is going to take but maybe 30 minutes because there's a few things we'll go over, obviously. It's been a slow week from last week to this week because, again, I'm more bullish than bearish, big picture, but I was expecting a move down, you know, just from a pure data analytics standpoint. And yesterday would look like a fake out, ended up being a fake out right here, and now we're heading higher. What I said on my Sunday video was that Monday through Wednesday are typically bearish. In fact, it's incredible how bearish it is for whatever reason, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then we had yesterday head up a little bit, and now we've gone down. So it's another year that basically we've closed lower than what we opened, and it happens year over year for whatever reason during this window. So in saying that, yesterday what I did right here I did a micro, and I did a micro because, again, of the overall uncertainty, but we had a Laguerre not quite at 0.2. I took a trigger a little early, but I've got my stop down here. So again, if I get stopped out, I get stopped out. It is going to bring a great buy point coming up regardless. I definitely, was aggressively going in there on the indexes. Should I have done that looking back on it, knowing the weakness? Typically again, this was a nice fake out day for me. So again, my risk was pretty low here where I've got my stop. And that's kind of my plan. So those of you that haven't done anything yet, again, we just need to wait, right? The Laguerre, the reason why I love the Laguerre, it gives way less false signals, and it has not triggered yet, right? So keep an eye on that. Once it closes above 0.2, that will be another potential reentry point to go long in the markets, okay? And they're all looking fairly similar. So you've got the Dow as well. Okay, and then you've got NASDAQ. And we're looking for this nice move up, okay? Traders are roughly 55% short right now, okay? They were as much as 80% short, so they've shifted direction. That's why we're getting this right now, okay? That's why we're getting this box. And what I expect, we're eventually going to break out, and I'm waiting for the breakout at this point now to the upside. Okay, so that's kind of real quickly, big picture what I'm looking for. In the last week, I think I've had one new trade, which was, again, this morning on Netflix here. Okay, I did a small trade, heading long again. Did not close above 0.2 yet. Okay, but we have this. I've got time on my hands. Okay, and my plan is, if it continues against, when I get a trigger on the Laguerre, okay, I'm going to scale in. Again, I did a really small position knowing that, hey, if it works out, fine. Not going to make a ton of money, but you make money, you're happy. If it doesn't, then I can look to reevaluate and add into the position, okay, which is a little bit advanced technique, but I know some of you do that. So that was my thought on Netflix. Other than that, I'm waiting, okay? I'm going to wait on long plays until we get those triggers closing above 0.2, because the markets, lately, the last few days, they've just been consolidating. Granted, a little bit to the downside, but they're just doing this. Trying to make money in that environment is extremely difficult, right? Extremely difficult. You go long one day, you're down. You go short the next day, you're down. You know, that's when the markets are doing this. Your best bet is to just be patient at this time. Take a few days off, and let the markets give us that direction we're looking for. Okay, so on Netflix, as a lesson learned for me, again, one day does not make a trade, and I got in at a pretty good entry. I think I'm down 30% today, roughly. Okay, but one day does not make a trade. This is all we've been doing. Tomorrow it could go back up and I could be up. Okay, but bottom line is, if it closes below this Bollinger Band, I'm either going to do one of two things, depending on where this is at. I'm either going to add into the position or exit. Okay, that's simple. Okay, and we'll wait and see what happens. Yeah, and that's with an option play. I'm in an option play on this one. Yeah. So when we have these sideways markets, you know, I'll typically trade up to 5% of my account on a trade. Okay, a little aggressive for most. You can do 3%. I use, on a really good trade, I'll do 5%. On my average trade, I'll do 3%. On this trade, I basically did less than 1%. Okay, because of the uncertainty, because of the zigzagging, and so forth. Okay, because the good news with all of this, we're going to get some, again, phenomenal buying opportunities. Okay, look at Netflix, look at Amazon, look at Tesla. We got a lot of opportunities coming. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these. Let me talk about the dollar index. When we talked last week, we were just waiting for the breakout, right? So again, here's the seasonal saying, yes, we're heading higher. We had the trigger right here, but again, I didn't take it because what I'm waiting for now is this. Come on back, give me a higher low, okay, and then this will be my entry point, okay? But what I love about seasonality, and to show you ahead of time, right? Massive downtrend, so we didn't want to just go in aggressively, but now here it goes. And is that surprising? No, it's not surprising, because year after year, late September going into October, the dollar index climbs. Okay, it seems to have broken past that 50 period now. So again, what I want to see is come on back, head higher, and we'll look to enter there if we want to. Okay, I don't like to go too aggressively with these trends. That's why I didn't take this initial trigger here. Okay, bonds. So I'm basically short. I have a short play on TLT, and you can see why. It hasn't been doing anything, right? Again, just consolidating, but I have a short plan that I like the entry. At some point, we are just going to, you know, get a nice move down. I took the trigger off a 4-hour because, again, I love this right here. And then when we get into roughly November, we'll look for the long play. But until then, I like it to the short. And I actually what I did was a TLT option play. Okay, again, small size right now. I'm not risking a lot of money of what I normally would. You know, a 3 to 5% trade's pretty normal for me. Right now, I'm doing 1% roughly because I want to see something happen on this, break out and go in the direction I'm looking, because then there's going to be a lot more opportunities. And the hardest thing about trading is patience, right? And, you know, one of the reasons why I've always struggled continuing my alert service year after year is because if I trade with my live money, I'm not going to force anything. So if I go a week without trading, it's fine with me. But I know a lot of folks are like, well, there's got to be trades out there. But with my system, I can sit on my hands, okay, or focus more on the futures and the Forex markets. But, you know, again, looking back, what do I think about Netflix? Well, first of all, I love it for a long opportunity, okay. I went in aggressively, okay, off a 4-hour aggressive move, and we just need that now to head higher. in order to make money on Netflix. Will Netflix be higher now? I mean, in a couple months, what it is now, yeah, it's going to be, right? But you want to try to get in and pinpoint those entries as well as you can so you can get up right away and eliminate risk. That's always the goal, okay? You're looking at Apple. Again, what a great opportunity coming up on Apple again, right? The Laguerre's been extremely patient. Again, what I love about the Laguerre. You know, look at the last trigger we had, okay? So my next trade coming up with stocks, more than likely, will be Apple to the long side. Is that going to be this week? We don't know, right? Probably not. Probably going into next week. Or if it continues down, we won't get in at all, okay? But that's the plan with some of these technology stocks, okay? You know, Google again, you know, look at the discounts you're going to be getting. Laguerre's been very, very patient, right? We're just waiting for that new trigger, and then we'll head it. Okay, so what else do we got going on here? So let's look at the VIX. So we had a combo long on the VIX, just meaning that we were expecting some volatility, okay? We were expecting this. From the seasonal perspective as well, now, you know, we're going to start heading down soon. But we had the VIX going up. We had the first few days of this week heading lower historically. And because I am much more a bull than a bear, right, that's why I haven't been trading that much on stocks, right? Not much at all. Did a Netflix trade, that's been it. And the reason is, again, it's acting like it should, but what it's going to do is it's going to peak here soon, the VIX, and then it'll start rolling over again, right? And then here comes our longs again. So patience, patience. Go golfing. Go for that bike ride, Bob. Get out of the house. Let the markets do its thing. Crude oil. Again, remember we talked last week. In fact, let me bring up the USO. Okay, so we know it's going to head lower. We're just waiting on the new trigger. We're getting close, right? We're getting close. So if you like USO, if you like an oil trade short, we're getting very close on that. Again, I would wait for the trigger above to close below 0.8, and then if you're okay with that risk where you're at on the price chart, you know, it's a good opportunity for you. Okay. The euro got me this week on the futures market. Okay, so I was expecting a jump. We had a curve up. I entered, and it went exactly the opposite way. Okay, that's trading, right? That happens. But again, define stop loss on futures. You have to. Okay, and now what I'm looking for is come on back, retest this area of congestion. And then in the future, I'll look to short the euro, okay? But I like the opportunity at the time with the bounce. US dollar Mexican peso was a play, an alert I put out yesterday, go long, okay? You're like, well, that worked out nice, didn't it? Yes, except you see it missed me by just a couple pips, okay? So I never got filled on this. I had my entry right here, and it went straight up and hit my 2 profit target. So the reason why I'm starting out today showing you this, no matter how much you trade, no matter what's going on, okay, we all can have luck like this right here, okay, where it just didn't quite fill me before it's headed up to the moon, right? There's no perfect scenario. If you get more aggressive on your entries, okay, how often do you see no wick on either side, right? I mean, you almost always see wicks, right? So I was just looking for a little bit of wick to get me in, and it didn't happen, and then it made a very, very nice move. Again, should that surprise us? No, we've been waiting for that, right? We've been waiting for that blowout. So again, now what we need to do is retrace, head higher like this, and then we'll look to go long and get filled this time on the peso, okay? Al or AJ, how's it going? Okay, so let's look at some of these stocks here. Gold, by the way. So, gold typically peaks right around the start of October. It looks like it may want to head lower here. Gold's been consolidating forever. Now, is this the breakout? It could make a nice move down. If it's starting early, that's exciting to me from the standpoint of the October into November long play that pays for our Christmas presents, right? The lower it goes, the higher is going to come back. So I'm not going to do much right now with gold because it's been acting a little strange. But if we get that retracement and then the rollover here in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I may look for a short play on gold. Okay, which again, you can look at something like, there's a lot of gold plays, right? GLDs as an example. There was a trigger here, right here, but it's just been consolidating, and it was well below. It was right at the bottom band, so not the best entry for me with my risk tolerance. In a couple of my mentorships, we talked a little bit about narrow Bollinger Bands. So when you have consolidation, and with a lot of these markets are consolidating, okay? If you have a narrow band, the bands aren't really that useful because they're going to break out at some point, and they're typically going to break out in the seasonal moves, okay? So, if you have a narrow band, I kind of ignore them if they're real narrow. But what you can do is you can always add, this is the 50-period moving average. Okay, you can add a series of moving averages and just go in the direction of the trend of those moving averages if they match the season, okay? So you could do like an 8-period, a 20-period, which is the middle Bollinger Band, right? And then the 50, and if they're stacked on each other, you can wait for them to stack on each other before you take that long or short play in the direction of the seasonal move, okay? I don't do that usually on my charts because if it's a narrow band, I just like the 20-period as my potential entry and exit. But again, that's always something you can do when you have a lot of consolidation going on, okay? AJ, entry price for which trade? Are you talking just in general or? All right, so let's take a look at what else we got. So I wanted to keep ARWR on your radar just because it has a potential big move coming. And, this was the trigger right here, which means the next day. And I told you that I'm not entering here. Once you get this big move up, I'm not entering in the next day. I think that's crazy, okay? But now it's kind of creeping up. So really the only way to try to re-enter on something like that, again, in my opinion, the best way is that 4-hour chart, which you have the combo long here about a day and a half ago, okay? So it's the easy way to follow your rules that if you wanted to go long on a high probability trade, okay, you don't just go in. You have to have rules. There is your trigger right there, okay? You can always find triggers, and it's going to be more successful than just going in to go in. And we've all done that. That's why I bring it up, okay? Yeah, so are you talking options, AJ? Just so I'm clear what you're asking, then I'll address that. Good question. Okay, so now let me bring up what am I looking for here? Bear with me. So typically when I go to get into a trade, and if it's meeting the criteria with the trigger, I always look right around at the money options, AJ, as long as there's enough open interest at that, okay? So right around, it's going to be right between a 50 and a 60 delta usually as a general guideline that has the most open interest at that price, depending on how far you want to go out, right? Further you go out, the more expensive, obviously, the option is going to be. Okay, so sorting by SIG here, you can look at some of these short plays if you're bearish. DGLY has actually a long trigger that you'd ignore, okay, but it has a nice move down. So, on something like this, if you were going to be bearish, right, you're just waiting for that that rollover back now. It's giving you a better opportunity. You know, again, it's a pretty cheap stock, but you can make some good money on that. CPRX has a nice move here to the short side, and it's been in that downtrend. Okay, we typically bottom right around the start of November. Okay, so my issue here, taking this short, is just, again, you got to kind of ignore the band. It's really narrow, but you're also right at almost at lows. So to me, that's too risky to go in right about at lows. Typically, that can mean, you know, that you're going to bounce when you hit that $3 mark. Okay. So let me bring up an easy stock to look at and answer that question for Jim and AJ. So let's say we were trying, you know, we're going to trade Apple. It's coming up, right? We got a great trade. We're just waiting on it to get triggered. So once it triggers, you might say, well, how far out? Okay. And it depends on your goals. So if you have a small account, you don't want to be in the trade long, right? Then what you're looking for with that alligator trigger, probably about a month out, that 20, which is the 20 trading days is about a month out, okay? Because you want to make the move, you want to get in, you want to get out, you don't want to hold up that capital. What I typically look for, like on something like Apple, okay, you can see we typically peak here mid-November, so I'm either going to do roughly a December expiration on Apple when I do a long play, or I'm going to hold it potentially until that March of next year peak, okay? Now, it doesn't mean I'll stay in it the whole time, right? But let's say you're doing 2 contracts, right? You might get rid of one when you hit up right around here, and then you can get rid of that second contract somewhere up there when Apple, you know, makes their nice move. Apple will hit new highs probably by the end of the year. So, you know, so that's ways of playing it based on using the seasonal indicator or the 20, 40, 60, okay? But what I like to do is gauge by the seasonal indicator where are the peaks, and then have my, you know, have my expiration roughly around that peak or just a tad longer where there's good open interest, okay? Okay. Jim says, which month for the, which entry month for seasonality? Would it be the end of the month? Yeah, so, you know, when you look at it, so let's look at something that's not quite as ridiculous. So let's look at Ford, okay? So Ford is basically saying right about now, we're looking to go long, okay? Because you see how the red line is the forecast here, Jim, okay? And this is where we now start heading higher, okay? It was actually supposed to start heading higher, last week, roughly, again. But again, we let the Laguerre tell us when to actually enter within that time frame, right? So we don't have a trigger yet, okay? No trigger yet. But once we get it, right, then how long am I going to keep that option play? Assuming we get a trigger, right, roughly till the end of the year is where it peaks, okay? So let's say, here's what happens. Let's say we have another down day tomorrow, and then it starts turning around, and we get a Laguerre here, like right around here, okay? Then I'm going to look to do a play if I was going to trade forward, you know, with roughly a December expiration based off of that seasonal pattern, okay? So that's how simple it is as far as how long do I want to do an option play. I mean, Ford typically heads in the other direction in the beginning of the year, right? So we don't want to hold on to that any longer. So why buy a January, February, March expiration? You're paying more when you know it typically expires the seasonal right around the end of the year, okay? Great question. So the hardest part, though, what I want to keep saying is holding on, waiting, because the markets are going to turn around here, and you're going to have a lot of opportunities to make money, okay? So, you know, if you do try to jump the gun just a tad, we're all normal, we all human, we can do that. To use very small size, because if it works in your direction, okay, no one's mad because they made money. No one yet has been called me up and said, Dr. Keith, darn it, I'm mad because I made money. But if it goes against you, then you have 2 ways of playing it, right? You can always scale in when you get the trigger, the new trigger. You can add more, okay? Or you can just exit and then wait for the actual trigger, okay? But just don't hang on to it for no reason if you don't have a plan, okay? So let's say I was going to add into a position, okay? All I do is I go back to the option chain that I'm looking for. So let's say you're doing a December expiration. Your first time you did the trade, you did a December expiration. Now it's gone against you. If you want to scale in again, okay, I'm still doing a December expiration, but what I'm doing is roughly at the money, which has changed now. So you're going to get in at a different price, okay? So it's the same method, okay? And again, this is a more advanced technique, so I want to make it clear. If your max is to do 5 contracts on a trade and you initially do 5, I do not recommend saying, okay, it went against me, I'm going to do another 5. Because now all of a sudden, if it doesn't go in your favor, you're blowing your account out, okay? And that's not what you want to do. You have to know the market conditions, and as long as you're okay with it, start small, okay? And again, when the VIX is rising, that means there's more volatility coming in, so you have to be more careful, okay? And we have that trigger right here telling us we're expecting some volatility on the VIX, right? So there's no surprise. I mean, nobody should be surprised that the market's heading lower right now. I still don't think it's going to sustain, okay? But if it does, it's just going to give us more buying opportunities here in the near future, okay? As we look at the aftermarket on the ES, it's still heading down a tad here. We'll see if it holds tomorrow, right? We'll see. And all we're kind of looking for is to see, are we ready to make that retracement? Okay, we've got fractal energy rising, meaning we've got more energy coming into the markets now, okay? You know, volume's okay. I don't think it's doing too bad. It's pretty normal volume at this point. And so we just have to wait and see now, okay? All right, so, you know, some of the things you can always look at, though, is, you know, something like John Deere. Okay, even in a down day, you know, it tends to be respecting that 20 period. And look at that move on John Deere coming, okay? So, you know, if you're going to be aggressive, you can go on the next 4-hour trigger on Deere, okay? The next 4-hour trigger. So we're just waiting for this to happen, okay? And then this would be our entry point. Yeah, so what you can do is you can sort by the next 20 days. Come on down for the bulls. See what are some of the biggest moves coming. Okay, so like DAL, Delta, right? Keep it on the 4-hour chart on Delta, right? Wait for that next long trigger, or just wait on the daily. Okay, you've got enough room here. When the Laguerre either comes back in and heads higher or curves on Delta, that's going to be a good entry, right? Look at the entry here, how well that worked out. So during these downtimes, yeah, you could have shorted this, okay? It always looks good after the fact, but why would you, over the last 10 years, it's gone higher this time of year, so why would you want to short it, okay? Why would you want to? Okay, what else am I looking at here? So like Alaska is another airline, right? The airlines have been acting extremely normal. So that's why I like airlines now. You know, Alaska is probably my favorite so far from a pure price for the average trader. When you get that Laguerre heading back up on Alaska, okay, we're getting very nice, potentially very close to a nice move back up here on Alaska. So keep an eye on the airlines, folks, for sure. Just looking at some of these. So a lot of these were false signals probably today with what the markets ended up doing. I'm looking at triggers with percent moves coming greater. So, you know, here's an example on Crown Holdings. You've been in this nice uptrend. We're now right here kind of holding with this nice move up. So now you just need that Laguerre to close above 0.2, okay? So again, just within a few seconds, this is a good opportunity coming. Not a huge percent move, but you'll probably come close to new highs. So you have this area right here to make money, okay, when you get a new trigger. So again, just real quickly, you can no, I got 10 years. This is 10 years of seasonal data, not 2. You want at least 10 years seasonal data. So if I click on this right here, this number 10 is 10 years of seasonal data. You might be looking at this label or something, but no, it's all 10 years worth of seasonal. Okay. Okay. All right. Is there anything? Again, I told you it'd be fairly short today because the real takeaway I want you to get today is you kind of should wait. Wait unless you're going to be a total bear and think the world's ending, and then you have, if you do that, right, focus on your short place here. But I think we're at a really good buy point with patience, and if it continues lower, it's just going to give us a better buy point once you get those triggers on that Laguerre. So the Laguerre during these times, I mean, look what happened. If you look at something like Amazon, during COVID, okay. So during COVID, let me scrunch this up just a bit. We had this down move, right? And so we had one false signal on Amazon right here, okay? And then the next one was right here. So, even with, you think of every craziness that was going on here, if you did an option play, even if you took it here, you made money on it, okay? So let that Laguerre be your savior, okay? If it's not triggering and closing at the end of the day, above 0.2, if you want to be conservative, wait. Just wait. And you're going to like the results on that next long play, okay? All right, is there anything you want me to look at? Type it in here, and we'll take a quick look. No worries. I know some of you have been looking at getting back into Tesla, so now it's just giving you better opportunity, right? So we're getting a short trigger on Tesla, which again, I'm not taking this, but at some point we're going to get another nice long play. And there you go. You got all this room now to make money. Okay. ADP, one of my favorites, Jim. So good data mining on ADP. So again, if you got in here on this trigger, okay, you definitely want to hold with this type of move coming. Okay, if you're not in yet, now you can wait for that next trigger long. But there seems to be a lot of support typically at 130, from the past. It's just been consolidating, and what'll happen is it'll break out here in the near future, based off of what it's been doing year over year. So again, if you didn't take it yet, you can be patient and wait. If you did take it, again, there's 2 rules that I do. If you get down 50% and you did a full position, just exit the trade, okay? If it goes against you and you did a small position and you're not down significantly, when it re-triggers, then you can always add in another one if you like, okay? So those are the way that I do it. Again, my size right now is extremely small because right now we're doing this in a lot of markets, and that's extremely hard when you're consolidating like that, okay? INTU, let's take a look. So Intuit, again, looking good, not quite a trigger yet. Fractal energy is starting to rise. So when you get a trigger, looks like a beautiful play, absolutely. So you just wait now. CTSH, oh, bear with me. One of those weird queries. Okay, so it is CTSH. Comment, same thing. So, at this point, you need it to head back down and come around, and then we got it. Or, again, when the market turns around, you can go to your 4-hour chart. and wait for the next long trigger on the Laguerre, okay? But yeah, so obviously you're looking at the right ones, right? You're looking at seasonality, you're looking at some of these plays, and what will happen is when it turns around, right, those will be the biggest moves. Those will be the biggest moves. So you're looking at some good ones here to absolutely make some money here in the near future. Again, so what am I expecting between now and the next time we talk next Wednesday? Okay, nothing would surprise me yet. Okay, but the main bearish period is starting to end from a data mining standpoint. So if I bring up let me bring up the SPY. Okay, so I'm thinking what's going to happen is we're going to kind of start consolidating and then head higher. So what we need to do is wait for that trigger long before we do that, though. Okay, I don't think that we're going to come down and hit this 300 level. I don't think it's going to happen yet. Now, retailers, again, as I told you, they're more uncertain right now. They're more 50-50, which means we don't have an advantage, a huge advantage right now from a sentiment perspective. So now we're just really trading based off of the trend and the seasonal move. Okay, so that's why smaller size right now, and then once it starts making the move, okay, then we can start adding more in to some of our favorite stocks. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at. I do think that we'll be higher next week at this time than this week. I think we're getting very close to that bottom, but we're gonna let the price action and the Laguerre kind of tell us when that re-entry point is. So with that, folks, I look forward to talking to you all next week. And if again, small size it or just sit on your hands, paper trade, wait for the better opportunities, because you're going to kick yourself if you run out of money when you have all of these nice trades coming up. Okay, you got all these nice opportunities. Facebook here, another great long play coming. So don't run out of money. Don't hang in there. All right. A question on, let me ask one more on divergence. So, one thing about divergence, yes, and I've got a new tool coming soon on that to identify it, okay? I'm using divergence based off of the traditional RSI, not the Laguerre, because the Laguerre is designed different. I don't find it, it doesn't work the same way, okay? Like this divergence here, where you got the short arrows, where you had that little bit of a downcline, is off of a traditional RSI. So you had a higher in price, but not a higher on the RSI. Okay, that's coming soon. Because again, I'm not looking to go in against that direction, but if you get a divergence to the upside for us here soon, right, that's going to be a good opportunity as well. So we can use divergence in the direction of the way we want to go. I don't like to use it as a counter trend because I don't like to trade that way. Certainly you can do that if you want, right? And when you have divergence, that can be a very powerful tool, especially in the direction that you want it to go of the overall trend and seasonal moves. All right, folks, well, I look forward to talking to you all next week. Stay safe.